the Jund of Standard, or like the Death and Taxes rather, the 45% against the entire field deck.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not very high.
That's low, actually.
That is low.
Yeah.
Do you really think people would continue to play the same deck if it had a 45% win percentage across the board?
Depends on your sample size, right? Even if you're 45%, you can win a lot. I like mono red. I feel like the other decks are all just doing really powerful things, and you're really leaning on these cleaves.
All right, here's a weird question. I got a better name. I was actually looking at the deck list. NX hardened in the Forge. I don't like that name. I don't know why. I was trying to think of a better name.
I think that's a very good name.
Fire Forged.
I like that drawing 2 Annex is just great, because the second one sacrificing just makes 4 Satyrs. Fortanely on the play, that is important. Mountain and the Fervent Champion comes in for 1.
Yeah, this haste threat, it's only good in multiples as far as getting that bonus. That and Rimrock Knight are the only knights in the deck, as far as I can tell. And but it's just a Raging Goblin, and Raging Goblin, not traditionally that good in the format, but right now it just finds its place because there's really nothing better.
Turn to Steamkin for Fortanely, just Castle Vantress into Plains for Alan. And a little bit of differentiation in this red build for Fortanely. I think you usually do see Rimrock Knight, like you said. This is a main deck Robber of the Rich build.
Oh, cool.
Not a Knight.
My apologies.
A Rogue.
So it is just Raging Goblin unless you have 2 Fervent Champions.
Yes.
Nice. All right. Well, here my lizard brain immediately went to, oh, man, what if he has Zori's Charm? Because I've just been playing way too much Pioneer lately.
Gonna get hit by a Seal Away for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Seal Away what? Just rotated, right?
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
Here's an attack for 2. Alan's going to take that post-combat and light up the stage. Going to put a counter on the Steamkin. Finds Embercleave and Infuriate.
Well, that was mostly a dud.
Alan to 16 off that attack. Here's another light up the stage. Steamkin to 2 counters. You can see a couple mountains. Has not played land just yet, so that's easy.
Yep. And if he wants to, he can just cast Infuriate EOT to put a counter on the runaway Steamkin, and that'll allow him to get a big burst of mana next turn without having to initially invest 1. With that said, the Infuriate does potentially represent like 3 damage, so just have to wait and see.
Post-combat Tin Street Dodger. That's going to grow the Steamkin to a 4/4.
Well, if Alan doesn't have a whole lot on the next turn, Bobby Fortanely might just kill him.
And the Steamkin's actually going to empty to cast Robber of the Rich here.
Okay.
So still 1 counter on that. End step, it's Omen of the Sea. That looks a little mopey next to what Fortanely is up to.
Yeah. Fortanelli's really trying to get that Embercleave on the battlefield next turn. And then Alan's real way to get back in this game is to interact in some way next turn and then follow it up with Shatter the Skies.
Shadow the Sky, yeah.
The Sky.
And this is a real strength of the red deck. These games where the runaway Steamkin and your number of lands just balance out perfectly. The Steamkin goes unchecked. You make enough mana to empty your hand. Got this Embercleave left over. Here's a Teferi Time Raveler, though. That makes the Embercleave thing not super easy.
No, it's actually... oh, God, I hope Fortanely sees this. You can attack Fervent Champion and first strike the Teferi down, and then cast Embercleave for 3 and put it on Robber of the Rich.
All right, we'll see if that happens.
You'll get single strike damage. You don't get the double strike damage, but you do get to deal regular damage.
As a Teferi bounces Steamkin, Fortanely's going to play that other mountain that was off of the light up the stage. There's no way to get Steamkin and Embercleave online this turn.
There's not, but the Embercleave is just going away. So it's important to get that down, I believe.
So you see Infuriate here pre-combat. Target is Robber of the Rich.
If he's not playing the Steamkin pre-combat, I have to assume Bobby sees this. Bobby seems like a really smart player.
There it is. Fervent Champion attacks Teferi. Other creature is attacking Alan.
Yeah, I mean, this is just an outrageous amount of damage if it was double strike, but It's just going to end up being a +1/+1 from the Embercleave, but more importantly, it comes down instead of being exiled forever. So it's just another thing that Alan eventually has to deal with. It has the Infuriate on it, so it's going to be 6+1 from the 10th Street, 7 damage coming across, I believe.
You know, the robber picks up the cleave. The card exiled was a castle. That Castle Art Veil, that's going nowhere. I believe 7 coming across. There might be a conversation about that first strike thing. I'm not exactly sure what the back and forth is.
We might have to fix this because a creature with double strike cannot deal all of its damage in the second damage step, I believe.
Yeah, there's just independent steps happening. And it's right here. Alan goes to 9.
Okay.
Here's Shatter the Sky.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. Interacted in some way on 3 and Shatter the Skies on 4. This is very similar to the Kaya's Wrath type draws we've seen out of Esper Control in the past. But now we just get to play only 2 colors, and that helps a lot.
Something pretty unfortunate for Fortanely. Even with the cleave, the robber was just a 3, so he does not get to draw a card off of the Shatter. We know about a Runaway Steamkin, and there's 2 cards left over for Fortanely. What can he do to recover from that Shatter the Sky? He'll start with Runaway Steamkin. And that's actually going to be it. He'll let me pass. So it looks like there was some tension with 3-mana spell versus getting Steamkin online first.
Sure.
Back to Zach Allen. It's going to be a Temple of Enlightenment. He'll scry to the top.
Mine drawn Anax. Want to play Steamkin first just because he wants to get the counter on it, but
Teferi's going to bounce that Steamkin. This game looks rough for Fortanely, but some good news. Teammates Russell Lee and Daryl Ayers have picked up game 1 of their matches.
Yeah, it's nice for him because this game is starting to feel like it's slipping away.
Land number 5, here's Steamkin Phoenix of Ash.
Ooh.
Steamkin up to a 2. Fortanely will choose to attack Teferi. You get that off the table.
Mostly just to prevent the tick up into Shatter the Sky. Like, that play pattern is extremely annoying for aggro decks to beat. Here, though, if, like, Alan just has the another Shatter the Skies to clean up these 2 creatures, you know, he can bring back the Phoenix of Ash. If he has a land, he can actually he's 1 short of being able to put the Embercleave on it, but we'll just have to see. The Phoenix of Ash is going to be quite good if Alan doesn't have any way to exile it, though.
We'll see what Alan can do. So when it comes to there's 3 matches of Magic happening, but also we're looking for match records for teams. It's kind of redundant. Last weekend, Brian and Emma were calling the individual bouts fisticuffs. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I love that word, so sure.
It's a nice word.
Bare knuckle boxing.
That would be odd.
Right, because they're playing Magic.
Right, those are different.
Okay.
You ever heard of chess boxing?
No.
You haven't?
No.
Oh, you'd love it, dude.
Is it where you play chess and then...
You alternate chess and boxing. So you play chess for a certain amount of time.
Real smart dumb guy strategy.
You do a round of boxing. So, you know, let's say you're in a little bit better shape for boxing, but your opponent is a lot better at chess. We'll see if a couple of hits to the head can maybe even the score. Here's another Shadow of the Sky for Alan.
All right. Well, that Phoenix is likely coming back here, but we'll just see what Bobby decides to do. He's got 2 cards in hand, looks like 2 spells, so could have quite the heater of a turn here.
It's like Phoenix of Ash is going to escape.
It only escapes for... It only costs 3 cards to escape. That alone, to me, makes that card pretty darn good. But it also comes back with a +1/+1 counter and naturally has haste. So this card is just... It's just so good.
It attacks for 3, but here's an Infuriate. That makes it 6. Alan falls to 3.
And he has an Embercleave on the table, too. So Alan, even though he has Dream Trawler in hands, not quite enough to block and save himself from this Phoenix because he can actually just pump it, too.
Omen of the Sea end step. Alan needs something to deal with this Phoenix, either permanently 1 time or 2 times, because escaping again is just lethal.
He has Elspeth Conquers Death in hand. That's a great way to exile Phoenix of Ash. But he's only at 3 life.
Birth of Meletis. That's going to go find a plains.
It was that saga. That's my bad.
That is much weaker than Elspeth Conquers Death here.
Might have both. May have seen the Elspeth Conquers Death and then he drew this for turn. Not clear.
For his sake, he's looking to have both.
Yeah, because he just got the extra land here, land number 7, to cast after the Meltus. Yeah, I was right.
There
I'm very
it is.
smart.
Get that Phoenix out of there.
My eyeballs work just fine.
And we'll see if Fortanely can find this last 3 damage. Going to be important to do that a little bit quickly. Bertha Meldus makes a wall next turn and gains 2 life the turn after.
You know what card should be in Standard that's just not for no reason?
What's that?
Lightning Strike. That card should just always be in Standard. It's perfect power level for Standard.
I have some long thoughts on this. I'm going to let it go.
Okay.
We see a wall showing up off the berth.
I guess people used to say the same thing about Llanowar Elves. It's very clearly ultra powerful, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's not my objection to Strike at all. It's like, fine. Anyway, we have a Steamkin with a Cleave, and we have a Dream Trawler for Alan. All right, what can Fortanely do about this Dream Trawler? Remember that any non-creatures are going to cost 2 additional mana for this turn cycle because of Elspeth's Conquer over Death and non-creature spells.
Yep. Now, the wall can prevent 4, and the Dream Trawler can prevent 5. But the shields are basically down here. Bobby needs to play 2 spells right now to pump the Steamkin up to a 3. The Embercleave make it a 4. That's 8 trample double strike coming across. It's enough to kill the wall, but not the Dream Trawler, so this is tough. Now, if he has something like Shock, he could maybe shock the wall, put a counter on his thing, and then if the Dream Trawler blocks, he can first strike the Dream Trawler first. Or he just chooses to kill the Dream Trawler first anyway. It's all irrelevant.
He might just have creatures in hand. This here's Fervent Champion. Steamkin up that first counter, but a 3/3 because of the Embercleave. Not positive, but I want to say I spot a Robber of the Rich. No, it looks wrong with this tap of 1 mana. Teammate Russell Lee looking on, trying to come up with the plan. Feeling like that Champion's probably the card I saw, so no information on that 1 left over.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm curious, though. This Birth to Meltus about to gain some extra life. Might put him out of range of burn spells. Dream Trawler, if it doesn't have to block and die this turn, might end up taking the game away.
I imagine it's pretty important to get the Trawler off the table. Pre-combat, here is a Shock on the Dream Trawler.
Love that.
That's going to grow that Steamkin up to a 4/4 now.
Yeah, that puts 2 damage on it, too, so now he only has to send 3 first strike at it.
And this forces a double block, right?
Right. Forces a double block and kills the Trawler, which is exactly what you want. So I think this is a good play. I think the trick was trying to figure out if he could attack with the Fervent Champion or not.
But I mean, we'll see if Alan can do something about the Steamkin. It is quite large. Elspeth Conquers Death is going to get this Trawler right back.
Sure. But, no, that's fair. Okay.
It won't be able to attack next turn. So that much is good. We get the correct blocking order here. So first strike takes care of the Trawler. I believe there's 1 point left over.
Yep. But next turn, if he draws any red spell, it actually sends the Runaway Steamkin up to a 6. Or sorry, up to a 5, rather. And that means that the Dream Trawler is a straight chump block for prevent 5. Doesn't even gain life because of the double strike.
All right, Alan to 2. We'll call that 4 as his sagas go off. Dream Trawler comes back with a +1/+1 counter.
Oof, never mind.
Looks like a Narset Parter of Veils in Alan's hand. We'll cast that one.
I believe the last card is a Dovin's Veto, which could protect him from something like Shock or, I don't know.
Narset's going to look at 4 cards. Looks like some Narsets and a Dovin's Veto, as well as a land.
Second Dovin's Veto might be worse than Narset here. It depends. If he doesn't have a veto in hand, he should probably take veto. If he does have veto in hand, I would probably take Narset, just so you can maybe find some more juice. But I wouldn't cast it until next turn after you get a minus or a little bit of a distraction. It depends on whether or not he thinks he's going to die next turn.
Right.
I don't think he is, though, unless Fortanely has an outrageous top deck. Even
Find
then.
is Narset. He just casts the second one. I think the idea is he can cast a Dovin's Veto no matter what, and he would rather have something that can deal with the Steamkin. Going to go to 3 on this one right away. Finds Omen of the Sea.
That's not the one.
Yeah, not getting up to too much with that. He would love for Fortanely to just draw a mountain on this turn.
How do you feel about Castle Imbrith? Does that do anything? Does that change your mind at all?
I mean, the Steamkin would be able to only hit in 5 against this 6 toughness trawler, so doesn't do a lot for me.
Would kill it.
It would do that.
And he could also, I think, shove in with a Fervent Champion, too, and get in 2 damage that way.
Mountain Go. Sigh of relief for Zach Allen.
Yeah. Isn't that 4/4? Couldn't he have just attacked with a 4/4? Oh, never mind. It's a 4-power trawler, right? I'm stupid.
Right. It would cost him his large creature, and Champion Cleave, I'm not sure going to be able to cross the finish line. All right, so here's that Omen of the Sea for Allen on the end step.
I still think you should trade. That Dream Trawler is just threatening so much cards in life. And if he just finds any removal spell for the Runaway Steamkin, the game ends on the spot. I would have traded, I think.
Fair.
It's a really tough spot.
Yes, it's not like Fortanely is drawing to any particularly good individual cards. He's going to have trouble against this Trawler kind of no matter what he does, right? So you want to maybe get it off the table, hope for the best.
I mean, the thing about Dream Trawler is that the longer it's in play, the more impossible it becomes to kill, and the more impossible it becomes to beat if you're attacking via actual damage. Even in formats like Pioneer, before all the combo decks started cropping up everywhere, Dream Trawler is quite a powerful sideboard card.
Narset's going to take a look, finds a glass casket. Appropriate.
Yeah, because this dude's getting buried.
Update on our back tables. Daryl Ayers, a 2-0 win over Harlan Fear.
Nice.
Steamkin goes in the glasket.
All right, that removal saw here, a complete game changer.
And here's a combo. Chemister's Insight. Grow that trawler even more.
Yep, and he's going to be able to attack and gain a lot of life this turn. So he drew 1 for turn, drew 2 off Chemisters, and he attacks and draws another. That's a +4. It's already at 4, so he's going to attack, gain at least 8, dealing 8. Can also just go ahead and jumpstart the Chemisters right now, but I think it's just more important that he just, okay, never mind.
He just goes for it. I mean, I like what you're saying. You want to play somewhat conservatively. You don't want to spew with that Dovin's Veto, but I think he's just determined this is too much life.
It is. This is at least, I think it's 10 life. 2 Chemisters, draw step, the attack, and a +4. +4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's 10. So it's hitting him for 10. He also just wins the game if he just draws another Chemister's Insight. So
yeah,
maybe he's just digging for that.
Life total should be 14-10 at the end of this. That's what we got. And not really anything for Fortanely to do about that kind of life swing.
No, the game's over. Yeah, there's no one card in his deck that can save him. There's no 2-card combination in the top 2 that save him either, I don't think.
Hidexugo's 6th right.
Because you added 4.
His second right is 10, right?
And then you added 4.
Right. You get it.
Or, okay.
Triskai Decaphobia plus Time Walk.
So what about wow. Okay.
Well, apparently we're taking a look at our Pioneer matchup here. Russell Lee is going to open up with a pair of Leyline of the Void against this Sultai Delirium deck. Overgrown Tomb go for Jessup. Swamp go for Lee. See what Jessup does in turn 2. It's Satyr Wayfinder. Going to exile some cards and pick up this forest.
Yep. It's doing his job, which is find more land. It's not doing its other job, which is fill the graveyard, but he's trying. It's not his fault.
Just doing its best. Scrap Heap Scrounger off of a Castle Lockthwain for Lee.
Yeah, Castle Lockthwain, just incredible in this mono black aggro deck. That game uses his hand quite quickly, and with Mutavault and Castle Lockthwain, it's never sitting on its hands. Either it's bringing creatures back from the graveyard via their abilities, drawing cards with Castle, or attacking with Mutavault. It just is so good.
Yeah, Wayfinder is going to knock Lee to 19. Watery Grave tapped for Jessup and a pass. Now we'll go to Russell Lee. Sometimes these double leyline hands can feel like a gross mulligan situation. We'll see how much pressure he can apply. His Scrounger gets Abrupt Decayed.
Nah, his hand's stacked, man. I'm pretty sure he's got 3 spells after the Thoughtseize, one of which is the Vampire, whose name escapes me at the moment for no reason. Just because that's how my brain works.
The little one? Knight of the Ebon Legion?
That's the one.
Here's a Thoughtseize. We see a Jace Prodigy, an Ishkana, and 3 lands, Blooming Marsh and 2 forests.
So do you take the Merfolk Looter or the Giant or Spider?
Giant 3/5.
Giant or Spider.
There goes the Jace.
The argument here, I guess, is that the Jace can actually just maybe draw into some answers for the ley lines. Perhaps even just looting away some extra lands with that hand. Not too bad.
Backup Scrounger for Lee. Jessup's just going to play that Blooming Marsh tapped and attack for 1. Lee to 16 now. Scrounger's going to connect Jessup to 17. Here's land number 4 for Lee, another Swamp. And a Bloodsoaked Champion and a Knight of the Ebon Legion.
Yeah, not quite enough damage dealt this turn by the Scrounger to give a counter on the Knight, but it is quite strong. It's very difficult to block. The longer the game goes, the harder it is to kill with normal spells that don't just destroy things that deal damage. But blocking is just not a realistic way to interact with that card.
Back over to Jessup. I believe a Tireless Tracker has been picked up.
Yeah, and a Fabled Passage. So this is a pretty reasonable sequence. It's probably going to involve him chump blocking with Seder Wayfinder next turn, but he can grow the Tireless Tracker up enough that it can actually block and eat the Bloodsoaked Champion, which is nice.
So there's Tireless Tracker, quickly followed by Fabled Passage and a Fetch. Couple clue tokens in tow. Finds an island. Decent setup here for Jessup.
Who's the clue?
Sam Black?
Sam Black's
there
the clue.
It is.
There it is.
Now, this is the Lantern of Insight homage.
Mm-hmm.
And back to Russell Lee. Was empty-handed going into this turn. Life total is still pretty high. As it stands, I believe Tireless Tracker to be a little higher power level than Castle Lockthwain as far as pulling ahead on cards.
Yeah. One of these things is a land.
Swift End, pretty dang good, though. Tireless Tracker, thanks for playing.
Yeah, that's a hot one. Bust that up. Put it in the exile zone. Smash in with all your doofuses.
Bloodsoaked Champion is going to hang back, but the Knight and the Scrounger will attack. Team's thinking about a chump block.
I'm kind of digging on an attack with the Bloodsoaked Champion here, too. I don't know why. It's not like it matters that much if it goes to the graveyard. It's just going to come back soon enough.
Right. Jessup's going to take it. The Knight's going to grow. Jessup will crack a clue. And we'll see if he can do better than cast that 3/5. Here's a reason why he might have hung back. I believe that the card Jessup drew was Scavenging Ooze.
It's a good reason.
Getting that champion caught under that would be unfortunate.
Yeah, that was a heck of a draw. Jessup also has Murderous Rider in hand, too. He can use that. Blow something up. Eat a couple creatures, maybe.
Pretty good swing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I believe he has a land in hand, too, so I think he can just do it all.
Yeah, we know about another forest.
Yeah, if he has another forest in hand, this is... I don't know. I probably would have just, like, main phase Murderous Rider one of these creatures and then eaten it immediately. Especially, I mean, if you target Scrounger, that is. Maybe he's just holding it up to blow out the Knight of the Ebon Legion after the pump, and that makes more sense. And that actually is a good reason not to.
So we ate Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Wow, this is going to be bad.
Go back to Russell Lee, attack with the Knight and the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Scavenging Ooze in front of Knight. You're going to see Lee activate, and there's that Swift End you mentioned. So Jessup takes 2 from the casting to 12. Going to take 3 more in combat down to 9. I see we're doing the Magic Online Shared Adventure Zone here.
Yeah.
I think that's how the rules actually work,
I don't care.
but I hate it.
It's dumb.
I hate it a lot.
My cards should never touch your cards
No.
if they're not on the battlefield.
There's also a confusing one. Tell me if you've seen or heard about this one. If you Hostage Taker or some other effect and gain control of an adventure spell and cast it, it goes to your adventure zone. And I think that the Shared Adventure Zone obfuscates the fact that it's yours to cast. Anyway, I digress.
Look, man, Magic Online's 20 years old. I'm off it, man. I've been yelling about stuff for literally 2/3 of my life.
Here is that big bad 3/5 spider, Ishkana, showing up to party. Jessup leaving up a green mana here. Can eat that Knight. And the Scavenging Ooze is going to attack. It'll eat the Knight. It'll grow Jessup to 10. There's an attack for 4. Lead down to 10. 10 all.
You don't often see like naked Ishkanas coming down, but in the face of Leyline of the Void, just a 3/5 blocker here is pretty good.
So here's a question for you.
Answer.
Between 5 mana 3/5 reach and 4 mana enchantment, who actually controls the more embarrassing impermanent right now? What is worse between that Ishkana or the Leyline?
The second Leyline is probably the worst.
Well, certainly the second Leyline.
Yeah. But I think it was important for Russell to play both of them just because something like Assassin's Trophy or some sort of disenchant effect in general can blow it up and kind of unlock all those graveyard-related synergies.
Oh, if you got him, you put him in. But I'm wondering if you're supposed to have him.
Yeah, I think you do. I think that stuff like Euro is powerful enough and gives the deck long enough late game that it's worthwhile. The only reason this game is even close is because of Scavenging Ooze, honestly.
Sure.
Russell was like pretty far ahead, and I still think he can come back. Dan has like no real pressure, so if Russell can just find another removal spell for the Scavenging Ooze here, I think he's actually just gold.
Here's that Murderous Rider cast for Jessup. Gonna see that Castle Lockthwain draw a card for Lee. That'll put him to 9.
Yeah, no attack from Dan there makes a lot of sense because if he does, Russell can just pump the Knight of the Ebon Legion instead of activating the castle. Just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. The classic playing against your fairies conundrum.
Mutavault, land number 6 for Lee. In that sweet spot. 1 Mutavault, 1 castle. Mana to use both.
Yeah, even as an Urborg, if he randomly needs all black mana. You don't see Urborgs more than like 1 often in these decks. I prefer 2, especially if you're going to play removal spells like Grasp of Darkness. But just being able to go like turn 1 Urborg, turn 2 Mutavault, and play 2 more 1-drop things is so good.
Here comes Murderous Rider. Both players turtling up a little bit.
Yeah, but in the long run, that's going to benefit Dan. But the Castle Lockthwain's kind of the breaker there.
Dan has some bricks. Has
He
2
just drew
lands
one.
in hand and drew a 2-mana 1/1 in
Yeah.
Satyr Wayfinder.
So my first league I played with the Sultai Delirium deck that Dan's playing. I cast Satyr Wayfinder approximately 7 times. And I got a land in about half of them.
Yikes.
And I thought to myself, what is happening?
Was it like a 24, 25 land deck?
I was only like 23.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it makes sense why you would miss, but also, like, what the hell? Come on.
Right, Wayfinder did find a land for whatever that's worth. No attacks. You go to Lee. Draws and plays a Dread Wanderer.
Zapia.
Ishkana. Take 1.
Get you for 1.
Big 1.
You know, that's not an unrealistic clock.
No.
You know?
That shaves off 1 Castle Lockthwain activation every time.
It's true. It means he might have to suicide a Murderous Rider in a minute or 2 just to gain some life. And Dan here has drawn, let me be clear, Dan, since drawing this Scavenging Ooze, has drawn horrifically. He just picked up an Abrupt Decay, which might do something, But it doesn't even. He might actually be able to kill the Knight of the Ebon Legion and just start slamming in with everything. Because Scrappy Scrounger can't block. Murder Strider is the only thing that can block. And it can't really block Scavenging Ooze or Ishkana the Graph Widow. So here, Dan's just turning the corner. This is a great pickup. That Mutavault there looks a little scary as far as blockers are concerned. But really, it's just Murder Strider Mutavault on defense.
Abrupt Decay tags that Knight. Scavenging Ooze attacks.
Makes sense. Just the one attack. It's a little cowardly, but the safe play is often the right play.
That's a virtual 5 as that Knight's in the graveyard now.
Right.
You're going to see an activation of Castle Lochthwain before Lee thinks about firing up Mutavault. That puts him to 7.
That spider's coming, baby.
You got to watch out. Got to watch out for the Queen Spider.
All right, looks like we're just going to have a chump block here. That way you can keep on animating or drawing cards off Castle Lochthwain, but you may choose instead to block with the Mutavault.
Yeah, Murderous Rider will chump block. Lee goes to 9. Or maybe not.
No, he's just putting the trigger on the stack and he's going to eat it. And Russell is making sure that he has the ability to do so.
Oh, sure. The bottom of the library trigger.
Yeah.
All right, so Lee does go to 9. Then you see the Scoos eat that Rider. Jessup to 11. Tap to Blooming Marsh. Back to Russell Lee.
All right. That's a good one.
The card he picked up last turn was the 3rd Leyline, and the draw for turn is Swamp.
Love it.
So now he's going to take 2 to use the castle. Draws another Swamp. He's at 7.
Yeah. He can block with Dread Wanderer, though. It is one of those few creatures that can block in the deck, even though it enters the battlefield tapped. So he's not dead. But he's in a precarious position. So precarious, in fact, I think that the game is basically done, though. There it is.
Lee's going to pick him up. Dan Jessup ties things up here. They'll be going to deciding game 3.
That was a great game. That's the kind of Pioneer I like to see. None of this in the game on the spot combo nonsense. Let's kill creatures. Let's go back and forth. Let's draw some cards.
I'm still feeling cold about those ley lines, man.
Sure. You can feel cold about Leyline.
We'll stick with them. We'll see how that plays out in game number 3 here. Players reconsulting their sideboard. See Daryl Ayers looking over, along with Lee, checking out their sideboard guide. My question is, when you have Leyline in, it's a matter of how quickly you can still close the game.
Sure.
Because when the game goes long and you invariably draw your additional ley lines, can you afford those bricks? There's kind of a lot of moving parts here, and I wonder, is that game an unfortunate sampling, or is that game something that happens often enough where it's a problem?
So for me, what happens more often than that is you don't have a Leyline on 0, and then you draw one very quickly, and it's a dead card.
Yeah.
And, you know, people, like, for a while thought, when I had 4 Tormod's Crypt in my mono-red sideboard, thought it was, like, a joke. Like, why would you not just play Graph Digger's Cage or whatever? And, like, I just had to explain to a lot of people that every single one of these graveyard-based decks is base green, or most of them. And they all can kill whatever it is that you put on the table. And Tormod's Crypt, at the very least, if they kill it, still lets you exile their graveyard. And it costs 0. And if you draw it after the first turn, it's not a dead card.
That was kind of an eyebrow-raising element of my prowess sideboard during the Hogak format.
Yes.
I literally played 4 Surgical Extraction, because that was the card you actually wanted.
Oh, yeah, it's perfect. Surgical Extraction was great. I actually play 4 Surgical Extraction in a lot of my sideboards where most people only play 3. That comes up a little bit more in Legacy, just because you really need to exile, like, the Reanimator cards.
Yeah, sometimes just like casting 2 against Chancellor of the Annex matters.
Right. Just being a free card. Also, just being able to cast it on effectively your turn 0 when your opponent's turn 1 combo killing you is good.
Right. Players looking at some opening 7s here. keep on both ends. One ley line this time for Lee. We'll find out if that balance there can work for him. Swamp Blood-Soaked Champion. Over to Dan Jessup.
Looks like he had a Noxious Grasp in hand too, so maybe is a bit too sideboard heavy. We'll see.
Blooming Marsh Thoughtseize. Take a look at Grasp of Darkness, Noxious Grasp, and 2 lands, Swamp and Castle Locthwain.
This is a very reasonable hand. Castle Locthwain, couple removal spells, a 1-drop, and a sideboard hate card. Needs a little bit more pressure off the top of his deck if he wants to really be in this game. Have to imagine Dan probably going to take has to take one of the removal spells. It just depends on what creatures are in his hand. Because if he has Jace, he wants to play that on turn 2. Taking Grasp of Darkness makes sense. If he has something like Tireless Tracker, Ishkanah, some bigger green creature, it's just more important to take that.
We'll take his Grasp of Darkness, just up to 18.
That leads me to believe the Grasp should not be in the deck. If the
Noxious Grasp or the Grasp of Darkness?
The Noxious Grasp, excuse me. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I forget. Just simply put, if your opponent makes you discard a card and they're not taking your sideboard card, it's probably not that good.
That's a fair assessment. Big pickup for Lee, though. Finds the Knight of the Ebon Legion, another attacker that's going to matter for the makeup of this hand.
Yeah, and it's going to be extremely good with just having that third land for Knight of the Ebon Legion to start pumping next turn is a big deal. Dan here, I don't think he has a removal spell, but if he has a Fatal Push for the Knight, he's in good shape. Outside of that, I think he might be in a bit of a pickle. There's a pretty fast start from Russell, 1-drop, 2-drop with a ley line and a removal spell in hand.
So Jessup's at 16. He's going to traverse the Ovenwald for an island. Suppose that one's never going to find a creature under a ley line.
Nope.
Plays Blooming Marsh. Just passes.
I wonder if he's bluffing or if he actually has the Fatal Push. Because Russell's kind of just bottlenecked to pumping if he doesn't draw a threat to cast here. And it's just going to eat up his whole turn. And there it is.
Yeah, Dan has the Fatal Push. In fairness, though, Russell has nothing else to do.
All right, that's what I'm saying. His hand is forced, so it's not like it's that big of a deal.
Right.
But if he had drawn like a creature for a turn, it would have been a pretty interesting decision because you get the extra counter from the Knight of the Ebon Legion as well.
Right. Knight gets pumped, but then pushed. Blood-Soaked Champion knocks Jessup to 14. Go back Jessup's way. Looks like he does have Jace Prince Prodigy. Island and cast that will be the turn. Lee draws.
Yeah, Noxious Grass rotting in hand against the Jace Prince Prodigy. Could be a tough spot for Russell. Let's see if he has anything here.
Plays Swamp, attacks with Blood-Soaked Champion, Jessup to 12. Trying to discern what the card Lee drew was.
I choose not to speculate.
So, I was wondering about this. There's a card that I thought it was, but I don't usually see in these deck lists. I believe it is the 1X Ifnir Deadlands.
You know, I was actually maybe my lizard brain saw it, because I was actually just thinking about how Ifnir Deadlands would be sick right now.
It is an answer to the Jace. Not until next turn, though.
Right, but he gets to draw a card this turn, untap. If he doesn't have an answer for it, attack for 2, then Infinite Deadlands, kill thing.
The Jace is not much of a threat under this ley line, is it?
No, but it is Merfolk Looter effectively, and it will always make Dan's hand better. It makes the Satyr Wayfinders good.
All right, so Jessup played a Breeding Pool tap after looting. See Lee say, I would like to attack you. Jessup's going to Abrupt Decay that before it can attack, so you don't get that raid ability on the Blood-Soaked Champion.
Yeah, you got to be really careful with your timing against cards like that.
Especially that one. It's just right on the card.
Right, says it on it.
Yeah.
But for newer players, a lot of people kind of teach you to wait until like after blockers to kill the creature, and a lot of times that's just wrong. And in that one specific instance right there, that it is correct to kill before attacks because the raid ability allows it to be rebought from the grave.
Right. Heuristics less valuable than experience. Scrap Heap Scrounger for Lee. And we'll go back to Jessup.
I read an article a long time ago, forget from who, maybe it's V. Maschwitz, said it's not that important if you make a mistake, it's how you recover after you make the mistake. This was in a direct relation to getting force spiked or dazed and then playing your land post-combat. Some people would perhaps shamefully not play the land so that their opponent doesn't think they're big stupids.
Mm-hmm.
But the best players in the room will understand that their mistakes are less important than their pride, and to prioritize getting your head back in the game.
So once again, we're going to see Jessup Abrupt Decay, the creature before the attack. Scrapheap Scrounger goes to the bin. If near Deadlands, played by Lee. Now, this was a weird cycle. Some Lee's activated instant speed, just the blue and the red one. If near Deadlands is a sorcery speed ability. So Lee just leaving up Castle Lochthwain right now.
Yeah, so he's going to Lochthwain, bring back Scrounger is the plan, I'm assuming. That's going to allow him to start putting more pressure. He understands that the Jace isn't really on a ticking clock because of the ley line. It's just Merfolk Looter. And it's good, but it's not potentially game-ending. And it's more important that he draws a card and gets back a threat than spends his whole turn and a land to kill the Jace.
Mm-hmm. Jessup's going to loot on his turn, discards a Watery Grave, passes. You see Lee draw a card and bring back the Scrounger like you mentioned.
He's got to be a little careful with the drawing extra cards with the Castle Lochthwain with so many cards in hand, because something like Tireless Tracker could be pretty problematic.
He did go to 14 off of that hit, but big find. Here's Rankle, Master of Pranks. But that's going to get hit by an ultimate price, and that Scrounger going to get fatally pushed. Jessup continues to take no damage. Been at 12 for quite a while now.
Yeah. Does have the ability to bring back the Scrounger again. And Dan is on pretty low resources overall. With that said, he does have Walking Ballista and a Tireless Tracker as his two cards. Russell can't really block. The Noxious Grasp is a great answer to the Tireless Tracker, so he's trying to wait a little bit before he casts it, I'm sure.
Jace activates. Just going to discard a Grizzly Salvage. You see a Walking Ballista in hand for Jessup.
Yeah, now he can exile the Rankle, but after that he's going to have to start exiling creatures like Bloodsoaked Champion.
Update from our standard match. Those players are going to game number 3, so any game win for Lee and Fortanely, that's going to win the match. Another Rankle pickup by Lee.
Ooh, buddy.
That is out of range of this 2/2 Ballista.
Yeah, and you're really starting to see the power of Castle Lochthwain here, because those two activations where Russell spent 8 mana and effectively half of his turn twice allowed him to gain multiple copies of Rankle and just having more food for the Scrapheap Scrounger in the graveyard. Now here, what he can do is he can actually put the Rankle trigger on the stack, then bring back Bloodsoaked Champion. But he has to choose the abilities right now, because damage already happened. And if he chooses, each player sacrifices a creature. Dan can use the Walking Ballista in response to kill the 2/1, and then he has to sacrifice Scrapheap Scrounger. Not that big of a deal, but it is something.
Lee contemplating what he would discard if he chose that mode. Jessup with 1 card in hand.
I actually think bringing back the Bloodsoaked Champion here is a mistake. I think you just say discard and sacrifice, and you wait to see what Dan sacrifices, because that goes on the stack, and then he has to respond. And he's probably going to sacrifice the Jace and keep the Ballista. And if that's the case, then you're just free to go. You just, But if you choose sacrifice and discard, and then Dan decides to burn the 2 counters on the Ballista to kill the Scrounger in response, so that you would potentially have to sacrifice the Rankle, then Russell can bring back the creature from the graveyard. So smart play by Russell and smart play by Dan, but not falling for that obvious on board but complicated trick.
Mm-hmm. So discard and sacrifice. Scrounger and Jace hit the bin.
Did you see that look on Dan's face just then?
I missed it.
He just looked up at the judge just holy crap. It's because Rankle's just, I don't know. Just the look on his face I can't believe this is happening. I was so far ahead.
Rankle is a beating. And I got to say, this one of Leyline business, that looks good. That looks really good.
Oh, when they draw their Jace and, I don't know.
Yeah, the Jace never transforming. That's nice.
Russell actually drew some removal spells to kill the random creatures the opponent's playing. That was the thing. The Ishkanon and the Scavenger just got out of control, and he didn't draw an answer to him, See, this Ballista is going to grow to 3.
Lee's going to return Scrap Heap Scrounger to the battlefield on the end step. Go back to Lee. I feel like this Ballista is going to shoot down that Rankle. Maybe
I would imagine.
block Scrounger, target Rankle. There it goes.
Yup. But post-combat, we got quite a few plays here. I believe there's a Spawn of Mayhem in hand. You can bring back the Bloodsoaked Champion still. Still has Noxious Grasp, and I believe his last card even outside of that is Murderous Rider. And he has one card in hand, and boy, it better be a damn good one.
So there's Spawn of Mayhem, there's Bloodsoaked Champion. Jessup's on 6. He'll draw a card. He's playing a deck largely based on having a graveyard with 4 card types. He has no graveyard with any card types. That's going to be a problem. Traverse the Ovenwald. That's not it.
No. I think his last card's Euro. I don't think it's enough. He can draw a card, go to 9, Fatal Push the Scrounger. He takes 6, and then 1 from the spawn is 7. So I guess he's technically alive because there's no Mutavault on the other side.
Finds Island. Land 5. Taps 3. Plays Uro. Goes to 9. Exile that Uro.
There it is. Handshake. And Russell Lee, Bobby Fortanely, and Daryl Ayers here are going to be 8-0. Our lone undefeated team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, their teams were